Thanks everybody for here. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to all of you here. I want to make a couple of comments on what I picked up so far today, or from what I picked up. And then I've got some points that I've written down that I want to mention. The first is that kudos to Hooray for putting on this, because I've been in the industry a long time, learned quite a few things today. And for those of you who are starting off, I think what he's doing is a critically important. What stood out in that regard for me is listening to the panel that were here before us. If you're starting a business, it is not easy. Nobody is ready to hand you a check just because you've got a good idea, because you've got a great environmental message. It is not easy to get a business started, but particularly in this industry. Two other thoughts, then I'll get to my basics. The state grants in North Carolina, they, to me, I've been successful in applying for a few of those at McGill over the decades. What was incredibly valuable in those, dollar amount was important, but the credibility they give a small business then sitting down with a bank manager outweighs the dollar amount. It's a great, just phenomenal program. Then I made a comment about I eavesdropped I came in late in a conversation about buying. I think it was about buying new equipment versus leasing equipment and the economics of it and all that. And the thought hit me, and I know I've tried to do this when I ran McGill, sometimes with success, sometimes with not. But today, as somebody pointed out, all this equipment has got incredibly expensive and incredibly sophisticated. Guy with the old toolbox can't go near a loader or a screening plant anymore, or a grinder. You've got to have a laptop. And so the thought ahead was, when we invest in things like that, we really need to put an awful lot more thought and time and effort into investing in the operator. I have I think for certain side loaders, I use this number in the past. It costs $175 an hour to run that machine, between the capital costs, the fuel, repairs, maintenance, and the operator. The operator was maybe 25% of that. But the difference between a good operator and a not so good operator can be 100%. And and it's hard for a small business because we're rushing to do things. We want 5 minutes after we buy the screening plant, we want it running at 100% capacity, and it's going to run 60 hours this week, and we'll try and we'll grease it next week. I think it's something we could all, as an industry, I think, improve. And I know there are companies that will probably do it very, very well. Anyway, that just quick thought on what I picked up from today. So financing a business. Number one, like I said earlier, I picked up today, as I think I've already known, having been through the wars, starting a business and getting financing very early on is really, really tough. So for somebody who is starting, you really don't, I would say, you don't need to be wasting your time talking to banks or what I call the professional investor class. You need to go to those unorthodox routes. Your neighbor, your family. Maybe I know one that we had success with very, very early on was a transportation company, a hauling contractor. We give them they were a hauling contractor and they did construction, military-based construction. So they invested in the company. And in turn, they got a return on their investment. We bought them out a few years later, but they got all exclusivity to all our transport for a while, which suited us because we were in no position to buy trucks and that as well. So I think when you're starting, you have to go after those things. One area I think that maybe the Compost Council or somebody could maybe do a little more on is, or somebody needs to do it, is like, we all love to say grants. At a high level, hundreds of millions of dollars are spent every year on sustainability from various public and private foundations. But where is it? How do you get to it? I don't know if that's maybe for a long-term project. I think even at USCC level, it would be. I mean, if I were starting a business tomorrow in this field, and if I could go online to ChatGPT and pull up who are the contenders. Another thing to consider a startup phase maybe is a professional grant writer.
Let's see if you're on the list.
Yeah. Are there grant writers out there that do it for a piece of the pie? I don't know, but I think these are things to look at when you're starting the business. As you grow a little bit, and the thoughts I've written down are the first two things. I think what I call my golden rule is number one, know what you want, know what you're after, and don't make a mistake that I see being made, and I know I made it a lot, in the early years of the businesses. You are so excited about the business and you're so excited about how it's been a feel-good business that you maybe overemphasize that over the business side. I think that's I think quite important, especially as you start moving up the ladder in terms of talking to more conventional banks and leasing companies, and then and what I call the professional investor class. The second, so know what you want. Number two, when it comes to messaging, know your audience. And you can divide that into, in my head, I divide that into three. If you're going after a grant, it's you focus your message on what are the drivers that dictate the distribution of that grant. If it's a bank, it's can you make the payments? Do you meet the basic criteria? And the gentleman from self-help today, his criteria were, minus the details, were very similar to a conventional bank. I think there may be one or two of them may be a little bit better, but high level, so the average bank manager doesn't care all that much, with all due respects to them, about what you're doing to save the planet. I think that can be at the tail of it, the big message and how this is a growth opportunity. But first and foremost, they want to know the very basics. This machine, if you're going to get a bigger screening plant, be able to show him that it costs me X dollars per cubic yard to screen my product now. It'll cost me 0.7x when I have this new machine, and I have a market for this extra product. Those kind of know them all the time. When it comes to the professional investor class, they want to make, and I think Hooray talked about this when I just walked in earlier. They want to see that you can be profitable, and they want big picture growth. Most professional investors want growth more than anything else. They want growth. Yes. So those are just some basic points, and I would hopefully have a good discussion and answer any questions anybody has.